Sandra Bullock stepped into the opulent boutique, her casual hoodie a glaring misfit among the silk and diamonds. The manager, dripping with condescension, sized her up with a sneer, ready to humiliate her in front of the elite clientele. But when Keanu Reeves walked through the door, what happened next turned a simple shopping trip into a firestorm of scandal that no one saw coming, and a twist so shocking, it'll leave you questioning everything. Before we dive into the full story, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. If you love captivating stories like this, don't forget to subscribe because tomorrow we've got another incredible tale just for you. The soft chime of the boutique's door echoed through velour's elegance, a sound that usually heralded the arrival of wealth and status. Today, it announced something else entirely. Sandra Bullock stepped inside, her white hoodie and faded sweatpants a stark affront to the boutique's unspoken dress code. A black cap shadowed her face, and oversized sunglasses obscured her eyes, rendering her unrecognizable to the untrained observer. She wasn't here to shop, she was here to test, to probe, to see how far the elitism of luxury retail could stretch before it snapped. Her latest film project demanded authenticity, and what better place to study condescension than a boutique that prided itself on exclusion? Helena, the boutique manager, stood behind the counter, her posture rigid, her tailored black dress a uniform of authority. Her sharp eyes flicked to the door and her lips pursed instantly. She'd been on edge all week, ever since the corporate audit flagged discrepancies in her sales reports. Her job, her entire identity, was hanging by a thread, and the last thing she needed was an intruder disrupting her carefully curated kingdom. She muttered to Clara, her young assistant who hovered nearby, clutching a clipboard. Who let that in? Clara, barely 22, glanced nervously at the new arrival. Her fingers tightened around the clipboard, her loyalty to Helena warring with her discomfort at the manager's venom. Maybe she's just looking, Clara ventured, her voice small. Looking, Helena hissed, her tone dripping with disdain. In velour's elegance, this isn't a museum for tourists. Keep an eye on her, Clara. I don't trust anyone who walks in here dressed like they're about to mow a lawn. Sandra, oblivious to the whispers but acutely aware of the stares, strolled toward a rack of silk dresses, her sneakers squeaking faintly on the polished floor. She reached for a shimmering black gown, its price tag discreetly tucked away but undoubtedly exorbitant. Her fingers brushed the fabric, testing its weight, when Helena's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Excuse me, ma'am," Helena said, her heels clicking with deliberate precision as she approached. "Can I help you with something?" Sandra turned, her sunglasses reflecting Helena's flawless facade. "Oh, thank you," she replied, her tone deliberately casual. "I'm just browsing. This dress is stunning, isn't it?" Helena's smile was tight, venomous. "It is, but it's part of our exclusive collection, made to order, not just for anyone. I'm sure you understand." Sandra tilted her head, catching the barb but refusing to flinch. "Not just for anyone? I see. So, who gets to decide who's anyone around here?" Helena blinked, caught off guard by the question's edge. "I simply mean," she recovered, her voice sharpening, "that our pieces are curated for a certain clientele, people who appreciate the craftsmanship, the heritage." "Ah," Sandra said, her lips curving into a faint, knowing smile. "So, it's not about the money then. It's about, what, exactly, the way someone looks when they walk in?" Helena's smile faltered, but her paranoia kicked into overdrive. Was this woman mocking her? Or worse, could she be a corporate spy sent to test her after the audit? "It's about maintaining a standard," Helena snapped, her voice rising just enough to draw Clara's attention from across the room. "If you're here to browse, I can direct you to our more accessible selections." Clara, still clutching her clipboard, edged closer, her heart pounding. She'd seen Helena eviscerate customers before, but something about this felt different, more dangerous. "Helena," she whispered. "Maybe she's just—" "Clara," Helena cut her off, her eyes never leaving Sandra. "Fetch me the client list for this afternoon. I need to ensure we're prepared for our real customers." Sandra's eyebrows rose behind her sunglasses. "Real customers," she echoed, her tone laced with amusement. "I guess that means I'm— what? Imaginary?" Helena's nostrils flared, her paranoia now tinged with fury. "Ma'am, I don't know what you're implying, but if you're not here to purchase, I'll have to ask you to To what? Sandra interrupted, her voice calm but pointed. Leave? Because I don't look like I belong in your little fortress of excess? The word fortress hit Helena like a slap. Her mind raced. Fortress was too specific, too pointed. Was this woman recording her? Was this a setup? I didn't say that, Helena retorted, her voice low and dangerous. But if you're here to disrupt our operations, I'll have security escort you out. Sandra laughed softly, a sound that sent a chill down Helena's spine. Disrupt your operations? Oh, I haven't even started. But go ahead, call security. Let's see how that plays out. Clara, frozen nearby, felt her stomach twist. She wanted to intervene to defuse the situation, but Helena's glare pinned her in place. Clara, Helena barked, call them, now. Sandra crossed her arms, the black gown still draped over one shoulder. You sure you want to do that? She asked, her voice eerily calm. Because once you escalate this, there's no going back. Helena's hand trembled as she reached for her phone, her paranoia now a full-blown storm. I don't know who you think you are, she hissed, but in Valor's elegance, I decide who belongs. And you, ma'am, do not. Sandra's smile widened, sharp and dangerous. We'll see about that. Helena's finger hovered over the security button on her phone, her eyes locked on Sandra, who stood unflinching, the black gown still draped over her shoulder. The boutique's air crackled with tension, the soft jazz in the background now a mocking contrast to the brewing storm. Clara, frozen near the counter, clutched her clipboard tighter, her eyes darting between the two women. She opened her mouth to speak, but Helena's glare silenced her. You think you can intimidate me? Helena snapped, her voice low but venomous. This is Valor's elegance, not some discount rack at a strip mall. If you're here to play games, I suggest you take them elsewhere. Sandra tilted her head, her sunglasses still shielding her eyes, but her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Games? Oh, I'm not the one playing. I'm just trying to understand your rules. Tell me, Helena. She paused, glancing at the manager's name tag. Do you decide who deserves luxury based on their shoes, or is it the hoodie that offends you most? Helena's nostrils flared, her paranoia now laced with fury. It's not about your attire, she said, her tone dripping with disdain. It's about respecting the sanctity of this space, but if you must know, yes, appearances matter. And yours, frankly, suggest you'd be more comfortable at the outlet store 3 blocks down. Sandra's laugh was soft, controlled, but it sent a shiver through the boutique. The outlet store, she echoed, her voice laced with mock wonder. So, you're not just gatekeeping luxury, you're deciding where I belong. That's quite a superpower, Helena. Tell me, does it come with a cape or just that designer dress? Helena's face reddened, but before she could retort, a new voice cut through the tension, sharp and dripping with entitlement. Oh, Helena, darling, don't waste your energy on this, said Monique, a VIP client perched on a leather sofa near the fitting rooms. Her blonde hair was swept into an impeccable chignon, her diamond earrings glinting as she leaned forward, a glass of champagne in hand. Some people simply don't understand the difference between a boutique and a thrift shop. Let her take her little game somewhere else. Sandra turned, her gaze shifting to Monique, who smirked, clearly enjoying the spectacle. Ah, Sandra said, her tone deceptively light. So now it's a team effort. Tell me, Monique. She squinted at the woman's embossed VIP card on the table. Is it the champagne that makes you so brave, or do you just enjoy kicking people when they're down? Monique's smirk faltered, but she recovered quickly, her voice rising to ensure the other clients, now openly staring, heard every word. Brave? Oh, darling, I'm just trying to save you the embarrassment. You clearly don't belong here, and frankly, you're ruining the experience for those of us who do. Helena seized the opportunity, her paranoia momentarily eclipsed by the chance to reassert control. Exactly, she said, stepping closer to Sandra, her heels clicking with renewed authority. If you're not here to purchase, I'll have to insist you leave. Now. Sandra crossed her arms, the gown still dangling from her shoulder. Insist? She said, her voice calm but edged with steel. That's a strong word, Helena. Are you sure you want to use it? Because I'm starting to think this isn't about me at all, it's about you. What are you so afraid of? Helena froze, Sandra's words striking a nerve. Afraid. The word echoed in her mind, conjuring images of the corporate audit, the discrepancies in her sales reports, the owner's icy voice on the phone. She couldn't afford to look weak. Not now. Not in front of Monique. Not in front of Clara. Not in front of anyone. I'm not afraid of anything, Helena hissed, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. But I am responsible for protecting this boutique's reputation, and I will not let someone like you tarnish it. Someone like me, Sandra repeated, her tone now dangerously quiet. Say it, Helena. Say what you really mean. Before Helena could respond, Clara's phone buzzed on the counter, the sound jarring in the tense silence. Helena's head snapped toward her. Clara, I told you to call security, not... It's not me, Clara stammered, fumbling for the phone. It's the owner. Her eyes widened as she read the screen, her voice dropping to a whisper. He says he's been watching the security feed. He wants to know why the boutique's reputation is at risk. Helena's face paled, her paranoia now a full-blown panic. The owner was watching? How much had he seen? She turned back to Sandra, her voice rising, desperate to regain control. This is your fault, she spat. You think you can waltz in here, disrupt everything, and walk away unscathed? I don't know who you are, but I will not let you destroy me. Sandra's smile widened, but her eyes were cold. Destroy you? Oh, Helena, I haven't even started. But since you're so eager to escalate this... She reached up, her fingers brushing the edge of her sunglasses. Let's see how far your rules hold up. With a slow, deliberate motion, Sandra removed her sunglasses, revealing her face to the boutique. The effect was instantaneous. Monique gasped, her champagne glass nearly slipping from her hand. Oh my God, she whispered, her voice carrying across the room. That's Sandra Bullock! Clara's clipboard clattered to the floor, her mouth agape. The other clients, previously silent spectators, began to murmur, their whispers rising into a cacophony of shock. Sandra Bullock? The actress here? Helena's face drained of color, her body frozen as the reality crashed over her. Sandra Bullock, one of the most powerful women in Hollywood, a woman whose net worth could buy velours elegance 10 times over, and she, Helena, had just tried to throw her out. But Helena's panic was quickly overtaken by a new fear. Apologizing would mean admitting defeat, undermining her authority in front of Monique, Clara, and the owner watching through the cameras. She doubled down, her voice shaking but defiant. Miss Bullock, she said, forcing a smile, if I'd known it was you, I would have... Would have what? Sandra interrupted, her voice sharp as a blade. Treated me like a human being? Offered me champagne instead of insults? Or maybe you'd have just pretended to care, like you're doing now. Monique, sensing the tide turning, leaned forward, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Oh, Helena, how could you not recognize her? This is embarrassing, for all of us. Her words were a calculated betrayal, designed to distance herself from the scandal now unfolding. She stood, her heels clicking as she approached Sandra, her smile syrupy. Miss Bullock, please, let me make this right. I'm sure Helena... Save it, Sandra snapped, her gaze never leaving Helena. This isn't about you, Monique, it's about her, and the rules she thinks she can enforce. Outside, the murmur of voices grew louder, drawing Helena's attention to the boutique's glass doors. A crowd was forming, passers-by, phones raised, recording the spectacle. Monique's public denunciation had turned a private confrontation into a viral moment, and Helena's kingdom was crumbling before her eyes. The boutique's glass doors swung open, the soft chime slicing through the cacophony of whispers and camera clicks from the growing crowd outside. Keanu Reeves stepped inside, his long black coat swaying slightly, his hair slightly tousled, but his presence commanding. He scanned the room, his eyes searching for Sandra, unaware of the storm he was walking into. He was here for a private reason, to discuss a charity event they were co-hosting, one that demanded discretion. But the tension in the air was palpable, and his arrival only amplified it. Helena, still reeling from Sandra's identity reveal and Monique's betrayal, saw an opportunity. Her career was hanging by a thread, and Keanu Reeves, Hollywood royalty, a man whose mere presence could shift the narrative, was her lifeline. She smoothed her dress, forced a smile, and hurried toward him, her heels clicking with desperate precision. Mr. Reeves, she said, her voice syrupy sweet, what an honor to have you at Velours Elegance. I'm Helena, the manager, and I'd be delighted to assist you personally. Keanu's brow furrowed, his gaze shifting from Helena to Sandra, who stood near the counter, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable behind her now removed sunglasses. Thanks, he said, his voice low, but I'm just here to meet... Oh, of course, Helena interrupted, her smile tightening as she glanced at Sandra, hoping to deflect attention from the scandal unfolding. I'm sure you're here for something special. Let me show you our exclusive collection, pieces worthy of someone of your stature, unlike some of our less discerning visitors. Her eyes flicked to Sandra, the insult veiled but unmistakable. Sandra's lips curled into a dangerous smile. Less discerning, she echoed, her voice sharp enough to cut through Helena's facade. That's rich, Helena, coming from someone who thought I belonged at an outlet store. But hey, I guess fawning over Keanu is easier than owning up to your own hypocrisy. Helena's smile faltered, but she doubled down, turning to Keanu with a forced laugh. Mr. Reeves, I'm so sorry you had to walk into this misunderstanding. Some people, she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy, seem determined to disrupt our operations. But I assure you, Velours Elegance is a place of utmost respect and exclusivity. Keanu's eyes narrowed, his gaze shifting back to Sandra. Misunderstanding, he said, his tone calm but edged with suspicion. Sandra, what's going on here? Sandra took a step forward, her voice steady but laced with fury. What's going on, Keanu, is that Helena here decided I didn't belong in her precious boutique because of how I looked, and now she's trying to kiss up to you to save her own skin. But here's the thing. She reached into her hoodie pocket, pulling out her phone. I've been recording this whole thing. Every insult, every sneer, every attempt to humiliate me. Not for me, but for an expose on the elitism of places like this. The boutique froze, Helena's face drained of color, her hands trembling as she processed Sandra's words. Recording, she whispered, her voice barely audible. You can't do that. This is private property. Actually, Sandra cut in, her voice cold. I can, and I have. Because people need to see what really happens behind the velvet curtains of luxury retail. The classism, the judgment, the hypocrisy. It's all on here. She held up her phone, the screen glowing with the paused video, the timestamp ticking ominously. Monique, still perched near the fitting room, saw her chance to distance herself further. Well, I for one am appalled, she said, her voice rising to ensure the crowd outside heard. If this is how Velours Elegance treats its customers, I'll be taking my business elsewhere, and I'm sure the internet will agree. She pulled out her own phone, typing furiously, her fingers flying over the screen as she posted about the scandal fueling the fire. Outside, the crowd swelled, phones raised, flashes popping as paparazzi and passers-by alike caught wind of the drama. A chant began to rise, faint at first but growing louder. Down with elitism, down with classism. Protesters, drawn by Monique's posts and the viral video now circulating, pressed against the glass doors, their signs hastily scrawled but pointed, "Luxury for all. End boutique bias." Clara, still near the counter, felt her stomach twist. She glanced at Helena, whose face was now a mask of panic, then at Sandra, whose expression was unreadable. "Helena," Clara whispered, "what do we do? The owner's going to see this." "Do?" Helena snapped, her voice cracking. "We do nothing. This is her fault." She pointed at Sandra, her finger trembling. "You think you can ruin me with your little video? I'll sue you for defamation, for invasion of privacy, whatever it takes." Sandra's laugh was sharp, cutting. "Go ahead, Helena, sue me. But good luck explaining to the world why you thought humiliating a customer was part of your job description." Keanu, silent until now, stepped forward, his presence a quiet storm. "Sandra," he said, his voice low, "is this really the way? Exposing all this? Here? Now? What about the event? The kids were supposed to help." Sandra turned to him, her eyes flashing. "The event? Keanu, this is bigger than the event. This is about showing the world what people like her get away with. Don't tell me you're going to stand there and defend her." "I'm not defending anyone," Keanu said, his voice steady but tense. "But you're putting everything at risk. Your reputation, mine, the charity. If this goes viral, the paparazzi will dig into everything. Our privacy, the event, gone. Is that what you want?" Sandra's jaw tightened, her gaze locked on his. "What I want, Keanu, is justice. The question is, are you with me or are you going to stay neutral to protect yourself?" The boutique held its breath, the crowd outside roaring louder, the pressure cooker of conflicting interests threatening to explode. Helena, Sandra, Keanu each faced a choice, and none of them could predict the fallout. The boutique was a pressure cooker, the air thick with rage, fear, and the roar of the crowd outside. Helena, cornered, her career crumbling, lashed out, her voice shrill as she pointed at Sandra. "This is entrapment," she screamed, her finger trembling. "You planned this, didn't you? You waltzed in here with your little camera trying to ruin me. And you?" She turned to Keanu, her eyes wild. "You're enabling her. This is nothing but a publicity stunt, and I won't let you drag Valor's elegance through the mud." Sandra's laugh was sharp, cutting through the chaos. "Entrapment? Helena, I didn't make you insult me. I didn't make you treat me like dirt. That was all you. And as for publicity," she held up her phone, the video still paused on the screen. "This isn't about me. It's about showing the world what people like you get away with." Keanu, his jaw tight, stepped forward, his voice low but firm. "Sandra, stop. This isn't the way. You're not just exposing her, you're exposing us too. The charity, the kids, everything we've worked for. Is this really worth it?" Before Sandra could respond, Monique seized the moment, her voice rising above the din as she addressed the other clients, now huddled near the fitting rooms, their faces a mix of shock and discomfort. "I, for one, am appalled," Monique declared, her tone dripping with false sincerity. "If this is how Veron Elegance treats its customers, I'm done. I won't shop where elitism trumps decency." She grabbed her designer handbag, her heels clicking as she strode toward the door, pausing only to ensure the crowd outside saw her exit. "Come on, ladies," she called to the other clients. "Let's take our business somewhere that respects us." The clients hesitated, then followed, a mass walkout triggered by Monique's betrayal. Helena watched, her face ashen as her kingdom emptied, her reputation in tatters. "Monique," she whispered, her voice breaking, "you can't—" "Oh, I can," Monique snapped, turning back just long enough to deliver the final blow. "You brought this on yourself, Helena. Good luck salvaging this mess." The door slammed behind her, the crowd outside erupting in cheers as the walkout fueled their chants. Clara, still near the counter, felt her stomach twist. She'd seen Helena's cruelty, but she'd also seen the pressure, the audits, the threats, the owner's impossible demands. Her loyalty warred with her conscience, but the sight of the empty boutique, the sound of the protesters, pushed her over the edge. She reached under the counter, her hands trembling, and pulled out a folder of internal documents. Sales records she'd been tasked with organizing, records she knew were falsified. "Helena," she said, her voice shaking but firm, "I can't do this anymore." Helena turned, her eyes widening. "Clara, what are you—" Clara held up the folder, her voice rising. "You faked the sales numbers. You lied to corporate to impress them, to keep your job. And now you're blaming her?" She pointed at Sandra, then turned to the crowd outside, visible through the glass. "They deserve to know the truth, all of it." Helena lunged forward, trying to snatch the folder, but Clara stepped back, her resolve hardening. "No, Helena, it's over." Outside, the crowd's chants grew louder, protesters demanding accountability, but the narrative was already twisting. Paparazzi, drawn by the viral video, shouted questions through the glass. "Sandra, did you stage this for publicity? Is this just a stunt for your next movie?" Sandra and Keanu, forced to face the chaos, stepped toward the door, but the accusations stung, blurring the moral lines. Was Sandra a hero exposing elitism or a manipulator exploiting the situation for fame? Before they could respond, the boutique's owner, Mr. Laurent, burst through the back entrance, his face a mask of fury. "Helena," he roared, his voice silencing the room. "What the hell is going on? I've got corporate on the phone, the internet exploding, and clients walking out. You're fired, effective immediately." Helena staggered back, her hands clutching the counter. "Mr. Laurent, please, I can explain." "No explanations," Laurent snapped, then turned to Sandra, his eyes narrowing. "And you, Miss Bullock, I don't know what game you're playing, but if you think you can defame my business with your little video, you're mistaken. I'll see you in court for defamation, invasion of privacy, whatever it takes." Sandra's gaze hardened, but the crowd outside, the paparazzi, and the protesters ensured the conflict was far from resolved. The boutique was besieged, the stakes personal, professional, societal, colliding in a chaos no one could control. Sandra and Keanu slipped into a quiet cafe a few blocks from the boutique, the roar of the crowd still echoing in their ears. Clara, now jobless but unburdened, joined them, her hands wrapped around a steaming coffee. The chaos of Valor's elegance felt like a distant nightmare, but the tension between the three was palpable. Sandra leaned back, her expression unreadable, while Keanu's jaw tightened, his eyes searching hers for answers. "So, Clara," Sandra said, her voice deceptively light, "what's next for you? You walked away from a sinking ship, pretty brave?" Clara shrugged, a faint smile breaking through her nerves. "I don't know, maybe I'll find a job where I can actually learn, not just follow orders. I feel free, I guess." Keanu nodded, his voice soft but firm. "You did the right thing, Clara. Not everyone would have had the guts to stand up like that." He turned to Sandra, his gaze hardening. "But you, what was this really about, Sandra? Because I'm starting to think it wasn't just about exposing elitism." Sandra's smile widened, sharp and dangerous. "You're right, Keanu, it wasn't. The expose? That was just the cover story. The real reason I walked into that boutique, recorded everything, pushed Helena to her breaking point, it was to test you." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Our new film project, the one inspired by real-life classism scandals? I needed to know if you'd stand by me, even when the stakes got messy. And honestly, you failed." Keanu's face drained of color, his hands clenching into fists. "You used me," he said, his voice low, trembling with betrayal. "You used Clara, Helena, everyone, just for some experiment? You're no better than her." Sandra's smile didn't waver. "Maybe not, but the world will see the video, not the truth. And speaking of the video," she paused, her tone turning icy, "it's been edited, just enough to make me the hero, Helena the villain. Too bad the internet doesn't care about the full story." Keanu stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "I'm done, Sandra. I won't be part of this. You want to play hero? Face the fallout alone." He walked out, the door slamming behind him, leaving Sandra and Clara in stunned silence. Across town, Helena sat in a sleek office, her hands steady as she signed a contract. A rival boutique, Chateau Luxe, had offered her a new job, manager, with a higher salary. The luxury world, it seemed, rewarded ruthlessness, not humility. "Welcome aboard, Helena," the owner said, his smile predatory. "We admire your tenacity." Back at the cafe, Clara watched Sandra, her newfound freedom tinged with unease. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice small. "The video's out there. People believe it." Sandra shrugged, her confidence unshaken. "Let them believe what they want. The truth is, Clara, power isn't about being right. It's about controlling the story. But you," she pointed at Clara, "you're the real deal. Go start over. Be better than us." Clara nodded, rising to leave, her steps light but her heart heavy. As she walked into the night, the city buzzing around her, she symbolized hope amidst the moral wreckage, proof that innocence could survive even if power and privilege twisted everything else. The saga of Velour's Elegance reveals that power without integrity breeds chaos. Sandra's manipulation, Helena's ruthlessness, and Keanu's withdrawal show how privilege distorts truth, while Clara's courage proves decency endures. In life, we face similar tests. Do we chase status or uphold fairness? This applies everywhere: workplaces, social circles, online platforms, where judgment often trumps empathy. True luxury lies in accountability, not dominance. Thanks for joining this ride. Drop a comment with your thoughts and where you're watching from. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell. More unforgettable stories await tomorrow.